Well, this is Dr. Stan here at Radio Liberty, coming to you from the hills overlooking beautiful and picturesque Monterey Bay, and bringing you the news behind the news, the story behind the story, hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at, that illusion is usually king. But in the battle for the survival of Christian civilization, it's going to be reality and not illusion or delusion that will determine what the future will bring. And I need to be mindful of the views expressed here and not necessarily those of the owners, management, staff, sponsors, or supporters of the station you're listening to. They happen to be my views, and for the next hour, hopefully, they're going to be the views of our good friend Charlotte Iserbyt. Charlotte's been around fighting, trying to get the truth out about what's happened to public education for over 30 years. She was certainly involved deeply with the Department of Education under Ronald Reagan, and tried to point out the fact that Ronald Reagan's administration was actually not doing what it was supposed to be doing, but was actually working behind the scenes, basically to control the educational system and to give a second-class education to our students, all the while talking about how their real goal was to improve education. Charlotte Iserbyt, you pick up the story and tell us about your experience over the last 30 or 35 years or more.
Well, it goes way back, and there's some out there, great researchers, who've been in it longer than I. One is Mary Thompson in California, who unearthed the systems management, the planning, programming, budgeting system, which actually called for, that was in the 70s, that called for outcomes-based ed. And outcomes, performance-based education, that is Skinner. That's direct instruction. It's not academic. What you can give the student to work with in his own head and come to his own conclusion. Performance-based education, which is Common Core, which is everything that we've had. The national assessment itself is Common Core. We've had it since 1969. So what I'm trying to explain here is that although I wrote The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, and tremendous concerns for public education, I am more concerned now with the neoconservative Trotskyite agenda of school choice. This scares me to death, because when the neocons, like Heritage Foundation, Pioneer, Beck, all of them, and these are tax-exempt groups, right? And we'll talk about that later because of the investigation in the 50s. When you find them in bed with the likes of Obama, Arne Duncan, ex-CEO of IBM, Gerstner, Reed Hastings of Netflix, and the CF and the Council on Foreign Relations, when you find all those people agreeing that we need school choice, I say, wake up, America, get off the Common Core bandwagon and move on. They're diverting Americans from the important subject, which is tax-funded school choice. Whenever you have anything that is tax-funded, it will be controlled by the federal government. Now, what happened recently is the gal at Freedom Works, and we put it up on the blog, and I'll give the blog address to people later, but she's meant to be very knowledgeable about school choice, and has been pushing it for months and months and maybe several years, like all of them are. And then all of a sudden, she goes and she looks at the legislation passed by Congress a couple of days ago on charter schools and finds out that it's federally funded and has a cow and says, oh, I didn't know that charter schools were federally funded. They're going to be federally controlled.
And that's what it's really all about, ladies and gentlemen. They want to control the educational system. They want to destroy the moral fabric of our society. They've pretty well done that. They want to dumb down our students, so they really did not have the foundation in reading and writing and arithmetic that they need to be able to succeed. And America is certainly being dumbed down while other countries are being raised up. And it's all anything the government subsidizes, it controls. We'll be back here in just a moment here at Radio Liberty. this is Dr. Stan here at Radio Liberty. Our guest is Charlotte Iserbyt, and Charlotte has been involved with education for a long time. Basically, during the Reagan administration, she was held a key position sitting in the Reagan administration in the Department of Education. And then, of course, what she saw was, instead of doing all the things they promised they were going to do, why they were really, of course, increasing government control over education, and they continuing this program of dumbing down our students. But of course, when she tried to bring out what was going on, why, of course, she was fired from her position. But she's been on the front lines of this battle for many years. Charlotte Iserbyt. Charlotte, go right ahead with the story.
Well, I'd like to just point something out, Dr. Stan. It's not because it's my work, but a lot of us have been writing and been on interviews and all for years. But I will point out that every single book I've written since I got myself fired from the department over a technology grant that was going to control curriculum in every school of the country, and it went out, but I did leak it, and it stopped it for a couple of years. But, ever since then, I wrote my little book, Back to Basics, only 39 pages, and then I wrote Soviets in the Classroom after Reagan signed the agreements with the Soviet Union. We can talk about that later with Norman Dodd and the investigation, Then I wrote that little flyer, and then I wrote Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, and then I wrote the updated version of it, and then we put out the disc set, Exposing the Global Road to Ruin through Education, and now we have the blog. Now, every single one of those books and videos has been boycotted across the board by the conservative movement in this country. Now, you know what? We could hang up right now, Dr. Stan, and I could just ask your listeners to please explain to me why that happened. Did they not want the information that I had brought out of the U.S. Department of Education to be made public?
Yes, I think absolutely, Charlotte. And certainly our listeners must understand that we certainly have a small group of people who control both the right and the left, the conservative, the liberal, the Republican, the Democrats. And basically, of course, they want to dumb down our students. And they have a program. And basically, they've infiltrated almost all of our conservative organizations and all of our liberal organizations. And this is why the average American is confused today, and most of these organizations say almost everything that's right except on really important issues.
Well,
go right ahead.
That's so important. I try to say this to people too, because I was very naive for years, and I kept making excuses for these people.
Hold that thought. This is Dr. Stan. Our guest today is Charlotte Iserbyt, and we've simply been talking about how suddenly the organizations, conservative and liberal in the United States, have been infiltrated. And these organizations will send you articles all the time and ask you for funds, but the vast majority of them, most of what they say is true, but they, on the really important issues, they're not true, because they have the agents planted in almost every conservative and every liberal organization, and even some of my favorite organizations where I know the people who lead it, they've been infiltrated as well. I can't tell them because they would never believe it. Yes. It's so difficult to believe anything could be this diabolical, but it's even worse. Go right ahead, Charlotte.
Well, it really is, and I'm going to have to say this because, and this is on my blog, with the ABCs of dumbdown.blogspot.com.
Repeat that again, because that's hard to remember.
All right, I know it is. ABCs of dumbdown.blogspot.com. I think if you type in ABCs of dumbdown, the whole, everything together, ABCSOFDUMBDOWN.blogspot.com. If you type down the first few words, you're going to get it. People have got to go there, and they're going to get the history, the real history of this thing. I mean, when we go back, well, let's sort of try to understand that this history goes back to 1934, and Norman Dodd knew about this. Of course, the Carnegie Corporation has been instrumental, other ones as well, but Carnegie mainly, since the early 1930s. And the little blue book they wrote, Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies, 1934. It's at my son's website, AmericanDeception.com. You can read it. There are very few left in this country. It calls for using the schools to change America's economic system from a capitalist system to a planned economy. And it also calls for getting rid of our land, taking our land from us.
And basically, of course, the great tax-exempt foundations, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford, and so many of the others, but those are the biggest ones, massive amounts of money using the educational system to gradually erode the foundation of this society, because their loyalty is not to America, but to this whole idea of a small group of very wealthy people ruling the world. And that's why they finance communism, and that's why they finance socialism, and that's why they financed the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War, and that is certainly why they're financing the Islamic terrorists today. You got to have an enemy as a distraction as you centralize more and more power with government. In the end, in the name of fighting those wicked terrorists who were financing. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, it didn't stop in 1934. You can follow Carnegie all the way through, funding the Education Commission of the States, the National Governors Association, the National Assessment. Everybody's screaming and yelling about the Common Core now. It's nothing more nor less. In fact, it's less horrible than it was in the 70s. And the only difference is now they've got the computers to do the assessment, et cetera. And you've got Bill Gates out there. And people can complain about Bill Gates. I don't complain about Bill Gates. I complain about the tax-exempt conservative foundations that must be examined. There must be another investigation, a resumption, not another investigation, a resumption of the investigation of the tax-exempt foundations that took place in between 1953 and 54 and were shut down by Dwight Eisenhower, his administration, and the Democrats, yes. And you've got to ask why. Well, because those tax-exempt foundations were not doing anything. The new ones, the neocon ones, are doing now. They were out to destroy our representative form of government, and that is going to be done through school choice with unelected council form of government. They have to have that. The corporations cannot put in the Soviet Polytech workforce training system without charter schools and school choice. They have to destroy all religious education, all private education, and, interestingly enough, they even call for destroying public education because that has an elected board. I have all the quotes on this. So the people who are fighting the Common Core better stop fast and jump tracks and leave Common Core behind, because even if they kill it, it will come back under another label. It always does, and they will find it in their favorite charter school that they allowed to happen, which won't have an elected board, which means that the parents will have nowhere to go to complain.
And basically, of course, what we have to do is get our kids out of government schools because they intend to destroy their heart and mind and souls. Today, when I went to high school, there might be one or two, girls in a class of 1,000 who were pregnant. Today, 42% of the white children are born out of wedlock. 55% of the Hispanic children, 72% of the black children are born out of wedlock. They set out to destroy the moral fabric of our society, and they have done it. And they keep saying, we're still a predominantly Christian nation. We are with the older people, but the younger people, they've destroyed their faith because they're never allowed to hear the truth. We have a controlled educational system controlled by people who control the great tax-exempt foundations that is intent upon destroying the soul of America, and they've succeeded. Go right ahead, Charlotte.
Well, all I have to say, and I know this is hard for people to take, you've got two options there. They're both poisonous. The first option is the partnership between the public and private sector, which is the tax-exempt foundations, the neoconservatives, with their lifelong school-to-work plan, working with the corporations. And to me, That's womb to tomb with unelected boards and all. That is the conservative agenda that is pushing for school choice. Now, remember that. I'm talking to the audience, not you, Dr. Stan. The other option is almost as bad, but not quite. It's the present public school system. The reason it's better is it has elected boards. It is rotten to the core. It was destroyed in the 70s, mainly by the Democrats who put in all the destructive values programs. In 1980, the Democrats sat back and said, we're finished with our job. Now we're going to let the Trotskyites, neocons, take over. They can totally restructure America. And that's what they did, with the nation at risk, with putting in outcome-based Skinner education, school to work. Reagan was the one responsible for the merger of the public and private sector. That's scary. I was the liaison with the White House on that. So then we go on, and we have the agreement.
Well, let me just interrupt there. Charlotte Iserbyt held a key position in the Reagan Department of Education. She saw what really went on. They said one thing, they did exactly the opposite, and it was all about this undermining of the educational process. But, of course, when she tried to get the truth out, why she was, they simply got rid of her. You're never supposed to understand that most of what you believe, based upon what you read in the newspaper, what you see on television or hear on radio, it's all contrived. Reality is usually scoffed at. Illusion is usually king. Go right ahead, Charlotte.
Yeah, well, the tragedy with this thing is that I was Pollyanna for a long time. And I was working with Phyllis Schlafly at Eagle Forum, and I got Phyllis on board with education. I was the one who did that. And then I watched things happening. And one time, when Carnegie had signed the agreement with the Soviet Academy of Science, I said to her, Phyllis, aren't you going to do something about that? And she said, I can't. I can't go up against what? The foundations. All right. And then we continue on, and I believe that she was on target. She supports school choice. Down the line, Phyllis Schlafly right now. People have got to get off that horse. I'm sorry, Phyllis. I have to tell the truth. So you won't go up against the foundation? Well, I will. And because she knew that. And now, where are we? I explained to her in a 24-page letter written in 1995 what school choice was all about, what charter schools were all about, that the NEA at the top is, I've got all the letters in that 24-page document that's at my blog. All the letters from the NEA to Bill Bennett, the Heritage Foundation, everybody talking about how they're going to take over the public school system and control it without elected boards. I have all that those documents. Now, these people, I can't stand it anymore. I have to say to myself, when I wake up in the morning, who do I support? The children of America and the future of this country, or conservative organizations that I've tried to understand for a period of 40 years? This is sad, people. I know you don't like to hear it. I didn't like to find out what Ronald Reagan was all about. I wouldn't believe the United Republicans of California and Southern California before I went into the Department of Ed. They warned me about Reagan. I wouldn't listen to them. I took the little book, here's the rest of them, put it back in my bookshelf and said, those people are crazy. Yeah, I know, because I was like you all. I didn't believe this stuff. I know now. When I got out of the Department of Ed, when I got myself fired, I went home and I pulled that little book out. Good for you people in California. Used to be conservatives, real conservatives down there. I pulled the book out and I read it. And I knew they were right. He was put in there to deceive all of us, to bring us into this new system with unelected councils, which is a Soviet form of government.
Well, I think it's so interesting that Ronald Reagan always spoke against deficit spending, but he gave us the biggest deficit spending in all of history, but we always justified what he did. He always talked against big government, and yet, of course, he said he gave us the biggest government we'd ever had. He always talked about being anti-communist, and yet, of course, he went right along with funding of the communists and helping the communists, because you have to have an enemy if you're going to have an all-powerful government. We're going to be back in just a moment here with Charlotte Iserbyt. If you have any questions, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY.
Clouds gather Right, Pop?
Right, son.
Kind of makes you think of Blake, doesn't it? Makes you think of a lot of things. We're going to be in this yet, Mom.
Hello, son.
Hi, Mom. Hello, darling.
New song?
Brand new, first time of the year. Brand new, my eye. You know, I threw that song out of Yip Yip Yap 22 years ago. Sounds better now.
Well, this is Dr. Stan back here at Radio Liberty. Our guest is Charlotte Iserbyt. And if you have any question about what's going on, really, give us a call at 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And Charlotte was involved in this battle to try to straighten out education. Certainly 35 years ago, before Ronald Reagan went to the White House. And, of course, because of her outspoken criticism of education, why certainly Charlotte was appointed to a very high position in the Reagan administration and saw how they were actually saying one thing and doing exactly the opposite, supposedly being critical of government education and yet fomenting it every turn. Our telephone number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. And we've got Austin calling us from Knoxville, Tennessee. Hi, Austin. Question or comment?
Well, I just wanted to ask your guest, there's a lot of curriculum that has been sent in by the New World Order and everything else, it says here that back in 86, that Robert J. Marzano left out of Virginia, Arlington. We all know what's in Arlington, Virginia, the FBI. And, he left out with tactics for thinking. So literally, we have been preparing our children to be controlled by supercomputer and F waves via this HARP since 1987.
All right, fine. Let's get Charlotte's remark on that.
Yeah, I would like to answer that because Indiana's great. I want to say this one thing. I think Indiana has had more true education researchers. They have nothing to do with Common Core, the good researchers. You have that great gal, Jeannie Georges, in Linville, and I shouldn't give her address, but she has done all the work on Marzano, and it's not in 1986. This started in my office under Reagan, and when Reagan signed the agreements with the Soviet Union, a few of us who take our husband's good money or our money that we work for or gas money or whatever, and we all went to Washington, D.C., we spent $5,000 to have a press conference at the National Press Club. After Reagan had signed the agreements with the Soviet Union to merge the two systems, we also, Jeannie Georges down there, she spoke in regard to Marzano's tactics for thinking, which is total brainwashing, and other issues that were bothering us. I'm trying to make a point here that everybody out there listening, please get the American people to stop listening to the tax-exempt groups that are leading them into the Soviet Council form of government.
And you're talking about the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Carnegie Foundation, all the other tax-exempt foundations, Bill Gates,
Carnegie.
they're all in on this together because they all, of course, have embraced an alternative lifestyle, an alternative point of view. And go ahead, Charlotte.
All right. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Stan, because I hope we answered this young man, because he comes from the state that has produced the finest education researchers this country has ever had, Indiana. And I can assure you, there isn't one of them there who supports this battle against Common Core, because they know that's not the battle. They know it's tactics for sinking Marzano. They know that it's school choice with unelected boards.
Okay. Well, because Austin is actually from Knoxville, Tennessee, but he does have connections to Indiana.
I thought it was Indiana.
No, he has connections. So let's just say, Austin, do you have anything else you'd like to say? Because before we run through this segment, go ahead, Austin.
Well, no, she's correct. You know, in Robert J. Marzano in the American Scholastic Curriculum Department, you can go straight to their website at the ASCD.com and see how bad the New Age has corrupted the current educational system.
Yes.
And I'm just going to tell you, he says on there, if you look it up, when two worlds collide, he names off all the people of the New World Order. And this is in 1993. If you want to see what's come down, it's Walt Disney, NBC. Just go on there and check it out.
Okay, fine. And let me suggest
but the key being, I wanted to thank your guest, Dr. Stan, and God bless you and all you've done and suffered. I tell you what, King Jesus is on his throne, and he's watching you, Dr. Stan. God bless you, son.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, certainly we do hope that if you are concerned about your children or grandchildren, get them out of public education, get them into private schools. Well, we certainly recommend Dr. Art Robinson. There are others out there, but we know this program because we've known Art for 30 years. The Robinson Holmes Curriculum, you can learn about it by calling 1-800-544-8927. But if you love them, get them out of school.
While the storm clouds gather
I did. Don't be late.
No. White with God bless America. My home.
Right, Pop? Right, son.
Well, this is Dr. Stan back here. Our guest is Charlotte Iserbyt, and Charlotte's been at this for a long time, having been in a key position in the Reagan administration, the Department of Education. And when she saw not what was being said, and not what all the conservative groups were saying, but what was really going on, she tried to expose the fact that they had an intentional program, even under the Reagan administration, of combining Soviet and American education and dumbing down our kids. And basically, of course, she came under tremendous pressure and was forced out of her government position. Now, if you're out there in the listening audience and you have a question for Charlotte Iserbyt, who's on the front lines of this battle and has written extensively on this and served in government, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. Charlotte, if people would like to get hold of you, get hold of your books, get hold of your material, get to your website, how can they reach you?
Well, the best way is to go to my website, deliberatedumbingdown.com. And there are all sorts of links. You can click there. You can watch for free the 8-disc Exposing the Global Road to Ruin to Education videotaping of our finest education researchers, all of whom are opposed to school choice. You will get the truth, the background, the history of what has happened free. Go to that website, and you can listen free. They're all on YouTube discs, and it's free. I mean, it's also for sale at Amazon, but because of this tremendous move by the neoconservatives, we decided, for school choice, we decided to make it free for you. Everything I've written is free. So go there, and then, of course, the blog, again, is ABCs, and the C's, the plural of that is an S, of course. ABCS of dumbdown.blogspot.com. And I also have a radio program on Pete Santilli's show the first and third Tuesdays of the month. And I have these good researchers we're talking about. And I want to mention something right now. The guy who just called in, he mentioned Marzano. And I can't tell the audience, there is no more important person for them to check on. Because Marzano's curriculum is, I believe, the international curriculum. It used to be called RISC, Reinventing School Coalition. Let me explain what it is. It's a Soviet system. It has no grades, individualized education, no competition, the STEM program that all the anti-Common Core people are talking about, and, of course, it teaches evolution, and it uses Pavlov. That is the Marzano program going in around the world. So the young man who called in, he's right on. Type that in. Type in Marzano, Robert Marzano, or type in RISC. And you will see what is planned for you in the school choice system that everybody is looking for that doesn't have an elected board. So you won't be able to complain, okay? Now, I had to say that. That's very important. Now, as far as the only thing that we can do, people always say, what can we do? Well, what can we do? I mean, I've written 3 books, done a disc set, et cetera. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, the situation is so drastic now with the school choice agenda being pushed very, very fast. And all they're doing that while the Common Core bandwagon is going on with, you know, all the different conservative groups involved, they're putting in the school choice agenda. They're knocking down schools right, left, and center in the inner cities, and we have to, believe it or not, we have to preserve the system, not what's in it, not the horrible, values-destroying stuff we hear about all the time. The system, that public school system that gave us the finest education in the world pre-1965, that has to be retained. Okay, what do? You get rid of the Department of Ed, but that's not really going to take care of the whole thing, because all they need is an office in Washington to keep data for assessment. What we have to do, while we get rid of the Department of Ed, we make sure that no services are allowed to be provided by the Department of Labor or Health, because their goal is lifelong community education under the unelected community council. Lifelong. Now, when I tell you to go to the blog, all of this is on the blog. All of it is in my book. That is the goal. And it will be go to work the Soviet system, the quota system for your children. They won't be able to do what they want, because if they're outside the quota, they won't get the training. This is all part of the United States-Soviet education agreements and the U.S.-China agreements. Actually, the community ed component is the Chinese communist system. I know I'm telling people things they probably think I'm crazy. I'm not. Now, Norman Dodd, let's go back. What can we do? Let's not just get scattered. First, we have to stop school toys. But the only way to do that is to knock out every single neoconservative organization in this country. And the way to do that is to resume the investigation of the tax-exempt foundations. Now, if any of you out there listening knows, I know the Republicans, you can't find a Republican senator who will go for this. You might find a Democrat. So what I want you to do, it's a project. Find for me one good Democratic senator who is willing to put forth legislation to resume the investigation of the tax-exempt foundations that was shut down in 1954.
Now, basically, this was an investigation of the Rockefeller, Ford, and Carnegie Foundation. The researcher for this was a man named Norman Dodd, and you can actually see my interview with Norman Dodd, the one I did in 1980 before he died. And Norman Dodd actually came and visited us, and we visited him. But suddenly he was pointing out that there was this organized effort of these people of great wealth to take over the educational system, so they could control our children and destroy the moral fabric of our society. And boy, have they done a great job of it. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, all you hear about homosexual today, most of this is not the homosexuals. This is the people who are pushing homosexuality, not because they are the homosexuals themselves, but because they want to create a depraved society, and they're doing just that. Go right ahead, Charlotte.
Well, okay. Now, so I couldn't agree more. I agree with you, Dr. Stan. So what has to happen? We've got to find one good senator who has a conscience. And we don't want a new investigation of the tax-exempt foundations. As Diane Ravitch, if ever there was a change agent educator, she was the assistant secretary in the office that I worked in after I left. So Diane Ravitch, she's calling for a congressional investigation of Bill Gates and the tax-exempt foundations. And I say, hey, Diane, have you got amnesia or something? There was an investigation of the tax-exempt foundations, all of them, back in 1953. We don't need to be diverted by you and diverted by the likes of Bill Gates on a new investigation.
And let me just point out, there was a wonderful book written in 1958 about the great tax-exempt foundations and their effort to take over education. The book is called Foundations, Their Power and Influence. Foundations, Their Power and Influence. I personally kept that book in print for the better part of 30 years. We carry the book. It's available. Suddenly, if you don't understand what happened in the past, you can't understand what's going on today. And Foundations, Their Power and Influence is pivotal to understanding the diabolical nature of our great tax-exempt foundations and the fact that they are working to undermine and destroy the very fabric of our society. The book, Foundations, Their Power and Influence. Call us at 1-800-544-8927, 1-800-544-8927. And most people have forgotten what Charlotte's bringing up, but she's bringing up the history of the past, and so we can begin to understand what's really going on today and why today 72% of black children are born out of wedlock. It's not happening by accident, but by intent. They destroyed the moral fabric of our society. Go right ahead, Charlotte.
All right. Well, Dr. Stan, your listeners can also go to AmericanDeception.com, and they can read the 3,000 pages of the investigation, the transcript that I bought from Robert Goldsboro, he had been offered any amount of money for that transcript. There was one copy left, and he refused any amount of money. From the foundations wanted that. They didn't want the American people to know what had happened during that investigation of the foundations. That transcript is at my son's website, AmericanDeception.com. Read that, and you're going to know that the admissions from these people, what they were doing to destroy our country. Now, look, we have another group now. Not so much Rockefeller and all, although they're involved, but the new players are, Heritage, Pioneer. That you people out there know their names even probably better than I do. A whole crowd of them. Heritage has an affiliate in every state. Heritage drafted the North American Free Trade Agreement. Heritage supported Reagan when he signed the agreements with the Soviet Union. Who can tell me that he cares about your kids? No, they want an international system. So, anyway, what I want to say here is in 1986, how many years after the 1954 investigation was shut down, Norman Dodd found out from us that Reagan had signed the agreements with the Soviet Union. He was very upset because he knew that was always the goal. So we held a ceremony for him at the Senate Caucus Building in Washington and to give him an award. A great American, Norman Dodd, who was told by the president of the Ford Foundation that they got their instructions from the White House on how to use their money, and that was to use it so the United States could be merged with the Soviet Union. That is it. Now, the Soviet Union may not exist anymore, but that's world government. Okay, now, Norman Dodd, at that ceremony we had in 1986, that was a year after Reagan signed the agreements with Gorbachev, and Carnegie signed the agreements with the Soviet Academy of Science to develop computer courseware for early elementary school children in critical thinking. That guy called in about Marzano. Thank you, computers. Thank you. Okay, so this is what Norman Dodd said. He called for a resumption of the investigation of the tax-exempt foundations. He said it had to happen because Americans don't have a clue about what is happening. They do not understand that they've got to stand up and be individuals and not believe in the collective. And he talks about the fall of any country that goes this way. And he says at the end, we have a task. This is a direct quote, and that task is to sponsor an inquiry which would pull out into the open the proofs which show that it is that dynasty, the tax-exempt foundation, what they're doing to us, that is being worked out by us as a people, unwittingly, in complete ignorance. He said, I wish I could help you think about that truth because it has never been put into circulation. It now deserves to be. That was 1986, right? And it is persons like yourselves who can contribute to the circulation of that particular finding, which the foundations, in their zeal, have actually made understandable. They have made a mistake. The mistake they have made is now represented by their determination to cooperate with the Soviet Union educationally. Okay? He was that upset. Now, he at that meeting, Jesse Helms, the late Senator Jesse Helms, who all of us held up as a great idol, promised Norman Dodd that he would resume that investigation. He never did. And I am pleading with the American people right now, and all of your listeners, Dr. Stan, to look for one good senator who will listen. All the research is available to them in all the books, all the videos, the YouTubes, my blog site. It's all there. Do they want to lose America? Do they really? Do all this 535 of them want to lose this country?
Well, I think, Charlotte, people don't want to lose the country. They just don't understand there's a threat, and they don't really want to put the time in. They think that freedom is free. That is, things are going to go as they have in the past, and they're not. We're headed towards a crisis. They're going to destroy this nation, enslave our people. I fear that tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, are going to die before this is over, unless the American people check out what you're saying and get involved in this truly spiritual battle for the souls of men and the survival of Christian civilization. And the trouble is that most Americans don't even know there's a problem. And that's why I do what I do, and I know that's why you do what you do. Go ahead.
Well, the solution, aside from the investigation, is very important to renew that. But again, I'm saying we're between a rock and a hard place. We're between the corporate fascist communist rock, which is Obama and the CFR and IBM and Reed Hastings and Heritage Foundation and all the pro-choice people. Those are all pro-choice. Interesting. I don't know how conservatives can go along with Obama and Arne Duncan on that. But anyway, that's the rock. They want to put our children into school to work, Soviet style, no freedom, no upward mobility, and not just our children. I found something from the National Alliance of Business, which said kindergarten through age 80. School to work, huh? Okay, I'm not kidding. That's in my book. Now, just listen, people out there who are 79. You've almost made it. You're almost out of their net. You're almost out of it. That's what we're looking at. Now, do you like that? Personally, I prefer supporting all the good teachers who are still out there trying to teach other than performance-based. There are plenty of good ones. Now, the neocons are trying to get rid of tenure. Oh, good for them. That's smart.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there because we have Gary calling from Seaside. Gary, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have a comment, and I just wanted to say God bless you, Charlotte, for exposing what you did when you did, and I think that you offset something that was very egregious. And another thing I wanted to say is I think we have gone from America used to be known for freedom of conscience, and I think that what has happened because of the indoctrination in the school system, it has become freedom from knowing what a conscience is,
right on,
and freedom from a conscience. I'd like to.
You're right. That is the basic problem.
We have to get back to moral principles. We're out of time, but I appreciate so much your calling, Gary, and your words of encouragement.
I do too.
And certainly, Charlotte, thank you so very much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Dr. Stan, I'm really glad to get this information out. I hate to do it in a way, but it has to be done.
Amen to that.
It has to be done. There's too much at stake.
God bless. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to Charlotte again sometime real soon. Be back in a moment.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't be late.
No.
White with gold.
Pop? Right, son.
Well, this is Dr. Stan, and this is the time when I need to remind our listeners out across America that my ministry, Radio Liberty, is primarily listener-supported, and as you know, we do 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, but we need your financial help to maintain our network of stations, and we're heard certainly on AM radio, FM radio, shortwave radio. We're heard certainly on the net. We're certainly heard by satellite. We have lots of means by which we get things out, and basically, of course, we need your financial help to be able to maintain that network. As you can tell, listening to the program, we get callers from all over the country. So if you'd like to join the Radio Liberty family, our telephone number is 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. And then, of course, so how can people begin to make a difference? Well, everyone out there in the listening audience has to find 5 people a day to talk to. Now, just to try to find people. You meet them in the store. Now, you meet them on the street. Now, they may be a friend. They may be a business acquaintance. Suddenly, I suggest you always certainly bring up what's going on financially, where we're headed. Always suddenly cut off the program with a God bless you, because basically we were involved in a spiritual battle, and a lot of people will not say that, but we want people to resume saying that, and calling upon God to be involved in this battle with us. So number 1, you need to talk to people every day. 2, you need to talk about the fact that many times our voting is rigged, and there's a great deal of evidence that certainly every electronic voting machine can be rigged. How many of them are rigged? We don't know. But certainly we need people working on a regular basis to make sure we have paper ballots, and we need to go back to paper ballots, and we need legislation to demand we have paper ballots. And then, of course, what we need to do is get people to study into an educational program to understand this, that we have a small group. They're neither right nor left. Certainly they control both political parties. They control the banking, the 6 major banks. They control the major corporations. And they're using the financial and military power of the United States to bring about a one-world government. And the reason that nobody knows about this is simply because there are 6 major corporations that control the media in the United States, and they control them all. So basically, they control 90% of all the major media outlets. Now, basically, the book that covers that, The New Media Monopoly. The New Media Monopoly. And you need to get that book. And then, of course, you need to get my explanation of who these people are and what energizes them. That's the Brotherhood of Darkness. That's the Brotherhood of Darkness. And you can get that book and The New Media Monopoly by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. Certainly go to our webpage, radioliberty.com. Look at all the 4 tape sets we have on thought control and mind control, and certainly what they're doing as far as poisoning the people here in this country, and what you've got to do to protect your health and your family. If you want to get a good educational program for your children or grandchildren, why, it's the Robinson Home Curriculum, and you can learn about it by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. But quite frankly, we need your financial help so that we can maintain our network of stations out across America. We're 5 hours every day, 5 days a week, while we're bringing the news behind the news, the story behind the story. Go to our website. You can watch our DVDs there, or you can certainly read our newsletters. You can listen to our radio programs there on the Internet. Encourage others to listen to our programs, because that's how we're getting the information out and reaching more people all the time. And then please pray for America. Pray for revival, but pray for Radio Liberty. My number again, 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. May the Lord be with you.